Exactly. I know. I wanted to dig into it, and but Wendy and Ben convinced me that if you go too early, then it kind of sort of decays before we get there. I said, well, let's just go get another one.
That's it. Happy
Yeah,
carving.
that's right.
Hey, Mr. Lewis, it's so good to see you.
Hey, Miss Cynthia, how you doing?
I'm blessed. How are you?
All right.
Good.
I seen the shell on here. Hey, Nichelle.
Is that Lewis? Where you been? It's
Oh,
good seeing you.
Shh, shh.
You came out of hiding. Hey.
I know. Shh. I stay underground. Shh. How you doing, Mayor?
Good, good. How are you?
Hey, Andy. How you doing, Andy Warren?
Is that Michelle?
Hi, Louis. Good to see you.
How you doing? Good to see you too.
Doing great.
Hey, Eric.
How you doing, Louis?
All right.
Good, man. Good.
Hi, Michelle.
We have our favorite librarian, Michelle, here. Hi, Michelle. We miss you.
Teen librarian.
Hello. We miss you so much. Hi.
Okay, what time is it? 7:05. Lynn, you want to go ahead and get us started? Can't hear you.
No sound.
I'm gonna try this again, hopefully.
Okay. I think she logged out to log back in. We just love technical difficulties.
Well, it'll give more people to get more time to get on. We'll probably have a lot of folks coming from the debate.
Yeah.
Boy, what a thunderstorm the other day, huh? Gosh. Yesterday morning.
Did we have a lot of cleanup in our area? I saw some on Military Road today. I didn't know if we had any like trees down, but I know we had a lot of branches down, but I'm thankful we didn't have what they had up north with the falling. Yeah.
Did you see that huge tree that fell over in Seattle by that elementary? Yeah, it's crazy. Well, we had a tree struck by lightning. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes,
I saw some public works vehicles out in the city cleaning up on 320th some of the debris and branches that had fallen in the street and on the sidewalk. That was nice.
Hi.
Hey there.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, guys.
I appreciate that. That was quick though. That it wasn't just down and in the way, because when the wind is blowing, that could make it even worse. That they were out and able to get out there early to clean up. So that was nice.
Okay. So, Lynn, are you able to share your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
So, hello everyone. Thank you guys all for joining us, Mayor Farrell and members of council. And we actually have a few special guests. There's one I'm expecting I haven't seen that I think you guys will be really excited to see. That's an elected official that we don't see very often in Federal Way. But here's the agenda. Cynthia, do you want to go over it a little bit before we start?
Sure. Lynn did her welcome. The agenda, I'm going to discuss briefly the meeting protocols, our purpose. There will be a Federal Way Collective Federal Way Black Collective update. We'll do a little Q&A on the update. Then the mayor's update, specifically concentrating on the proposed budget and the resources and programs targeting the BIPOC community. BIPOC meaning Black, Indigenous, people of color. And I include in that people with unique skill sets. Then we'll have a Q&A from the community, the Black, African, American, and African diaspora community. And then any mayor's comments. And then we will discuss the Black Collective, our Federal Way Black Collective ask of the city and any mayor's comments afterwards. And then we'll do a wrap up and next meeting. So before I go to the meeting protocols, Lynn welcomed everyone. I want to give the mayor an opportunity to just welcome people too, because you so graciously are hosting this meeting. And we thank you.
Well, thank you. It's great to have everybody here. It's our second meeting, and looking forward to it. Looking forward to a great discussion, and I look forward to a good dialogue and making sure that I listen more than I talk, and that's always important. So, welcome everybody.
Thank you. So, the meeting protocols. If you're not speaking, please mute. If you want to make a comment or have a question, you can put it in the chat. If you don't have access to the chat, if you go to participants, you can raise your hand. I will be trying to look to see if you've raised your hand. I will check it as often as I can, but if I miss you, there's also the reactions. If you take the reactions and put up your thumb, I will look for you there too, okay? So there's a few ways to reach me. I am facilitating, or rather moderating, this discussion. And so I will do my best to keep control of where people are and who's raised their hand. The other protocol is that this is a discussion for a forum for the Black community and those of the African diaspora to have some input and say. So we're asking that those who are not of the African diaspora to hold your conversation and input until the designated time. There will be some at the end of the agenda. We will designate some time from those who are not of the community to ask questions and have some input. But this is a great opportunity for those who have traditionally been left out and have not had access to have access now. And we're asking that you respect the opportunity for those to have that discussion. And lastly, we want to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that this land belongs to those of indigenous populations. I believe we're on the Duwamish. And so we thank their ancestry for allowing us to be in this space at this time. With that said, let's move on with our agenda. So Lynn, I believe you're up to discuss the updates with the Federal Way Black Collective.
Yes, thank you so much, Cynthia, for moderating. I'm really excited. There's been a number of folks that have contributed to the opportunities that we're going to be able to mention. So I do briefly want to share with you guys, as you all know, we definitely have an election coming up. So we've started getting out the vote. So what we wanted to talk to you guys about was our Get Out the Vote efforts. So how you can get registered to vote. We have a link for that. We partnered with the City of Federal Way. So pretty soon you will start to see, just like you did in the primary, the the signs around the city strategically placed, and there'll be a QR code this time. That was a community request that we've upgraded. So if you want to know how to get registered to vote, you can just snap a picture as you drive by and get connected directly to the Secretary of State's website. Also, another program that we launched this month for small businesses. In the state of Washington, the Department of Commerce has released $5 million. And until October 28th, we are providing technical assistance for folks in Federal Way, also in Kent. So we want to encourage you guys to apply. Please go to our website and make sure that you request information about the toolkits. You can get technical assistance. What we've heard overwhelmingly from small businesses is that they don't have the same opportunities larger businesses do to participate in these things. It's the same thing we mentioned when we spoke with Mayor Farrell and Council about how they were going to roll out their small business protection plan. So we're really excited to be able to offer this in partnership to enhance that and have more funding opportunities here in the area. And if you're a child care provider and looking for 4 stars credit, the ASQ program is launching on October 24th. You'll be able to register for those credits and take the program for free. And also, that's also launched timingly partnered with the City of Federal Way's funding for child care facilities. I believe the stipend is up to $15,000. So please make sure you're taking this class, getting that funding for your COVID pivoting, and connecting with us when you guys have needs. So that's all for my update. Thanks, Cynthia.
You're welcome. Thank you for that update. Posted in the chat is the link to the Federal Way Black Collective. I would encourage you to make that one of your favorites and go to their Facebook page and like them on Facebook and follow. There's lots of information about resources that impact the BIPOC community that's available there. Okay, so I believe next on the agenda, did anyone have any questions regarding those events? I'm going to look at the participants and see if anybody raised their hand. And I don't see if anybody raised their hand. And I don't see anybody put any comments in the chat. Okay, so we'll move on with the agenda. I believe now is the time for the mayor's update. So, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. And once again, thank you everybody for being a part of this important, and it's a second meeting. And looking forward to many of these in the future. I think really the great thing is being able to share and being able to come out and have an honest dialogue about what's going on in the community and really where we're at right now. And I do think that this country was just reeling from the horrible murder of George Floyd, and I really, I think we were all trying to find our way, through that. I'm really proud of this community, and I'm really proud of how we've engaged in just productive, honest dialogue with each other and respectful and really, it was pretty raw when all that happened. But we had over 400 people out at 320th and 99, and I think that was just really, the kind of outreach and discussions have been very important, and really ultimately, led to monthly meetings with the Federal Way Black Collective, and then came resulted in this, the establishment of our quarterly meeting. I'd like to thank the Federal Way Black Collective, and that includes Lakeisha and everybody, Cynthia and Lynn and everybody. So this week has been a very busy week. Actually, just yesterday we had the opening of the testing center for COVID-19 down at the King County Aquatic Center. A lot of partnership involved in that, and whether it was CSI Franciscan, the fire department folks. They were the people doing the swabbing and just a whole line of cars, and that's just really good. South King County has been disproportionately impacted, and especially BIPOC community members have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 in South King County, and it's critical that we get the kind of testing and resources to really address this. So, and King County Public Health has really been a model about how to go about this, and so they've been very helpful. In fact, actually, Wendy had suggested that I get tested, and it wasn't until I got there, and I said, well, I don't want to, I don't know if that's going to happen. And they're like, oh, we got a chair for you right here, and they wanted me to be the first person to test. And boy, it's one thing to get that thing really jammed up your nose, but it's another to have a TV camera in your face while you're doing it. And I was like, everything I had, I had water coming out of my eyes. It was, but it's important. It's important for Ben and Wendy, and it's important for the community. And you got to lead by example. I keep checking to see if I can get my results, but I don't have them yet. So we are in the budget process. I would be remiss if I didn't say that one of the historic things that happened in this community happened last week with the Fusion Anderson Family Homeless Center on Pacific Highway, just south of where Shag Housing is. And that's going to help out 129 families per year. It is the first of its kind in regard to family shelter in the city of Federal Way. And Fusion just did a great job. And we got, $3 million from King County and $3 million from the state. And, Peter Van Reichbauer at the county was, our King County councilperson was instrumental. And then we actually had former Speaker Frank Chop there, and he had led the way to get the other $3 million, $6 million total. Peggy Laporte and also their new executive director, who's just doing a phenomenal job. So that's a big deal, and we're working right now to make sure that when we have emergency cold weather shelter needs in the winter, that we're going to be there as well. We are in the middle of the budget process. I put forward a proposed budget to the council, and we've had 1 week we had 10 hours of televised. It was death by PowerPoint. At 10 hours of over 2 days of department presentations. And it was, we went, proposal by proposal about kind of where we're at, trying to balance the budget. The good news is that while our city, while all of the cities have been, as we all know, have been very impacted by COVID-19, the moves that we made have allowed the city not to have to engage in layoffs of our employees, and it's important, so I hesitate to get into, to get too deep into the budget, because if you get me going, I'll talk for an hour on it. But it is important to note that we are working to make sure that we've got the balance is there, and that we are trying to bring up our non-represented employees. We've had a real imbalance. We went quite a number of years without cost of living adjustment in our city prior to me becoming mayor. And so we've got to make sure that we don't lose good people going out the door. I would say that, CARES Act distribution is it's absolutely instrumental thing that we're doing to make sure that, businesses, individuals, the first grant that we got was for $2.96 million. And we've now done 2 waves of business support. That was something that we got out in $1,000 and $2,000 increments to the business. And now we're pivoting. We got another, I think it was $1.5 million in additional CARES Act money. And now, thanks to the support of the council, and it's great to see them here, many of them, or several of them here tonight, the council approved my recommendation to provide up to $500,000 in money for rental support. That's really important, especially as we get deeper into this. That rental support is being coordinated through a huge addition to our community last year, which was El Centro de la Raza. And El Centro de la Raza really has the capacity and the bandwidth to push this support out. Additionally, as we all know, that people people that are with limited means, and people that are on the edges have very difficult times with childcare, and that's why we've got $200,000 that the council approved to help out with childcare providers in our community, just to make sure that our childcare providers don't go out of business. And we're gonna get that out as fast as we absolutely can. And those grants are up now. And then also in food support, the first thing that the council approved after my request when this all broke out was $85,000 to key food bank locations throughout the community. So we're really getting this money out as fast as we can, and making sure that we're doing so in a manner that is really important. One of the other things is that when we were working on these grants, we have to this is federal money, but it goes through State Department of Commerce. And at one point we were told we could not give preferential treatment to minority and women-owned businesses. And so we appealed that to the State Department of Commerce, and they finally allowed that, and we fulfilled in the process of fulfilling that during the second round of business support. So that's something that was really important. And then in regard to communities of BIPOC, a lot of that funding goes through human services, and you would know that, Cynthia, as your prior role here at the city. And we have gone through. I've talked with Sarah all the time about making sure that we are readjusting our formulas, and formulas had been in place for a long time. And we wanted to make sure that our underserved and underrepresented communities in that critical budget process, that's really a subset of what happens in this budget process. And or it's deeper in, and it's done by a lot of the work by the Human Services Commission. And it was critical that that the grant making be done through an equity lens, and we've really refined that entire process. And the Community Services Division set equity as a priority, and we had training for our Human Services Commission, and it was focusing on underserved, underrepresented, underfunded populations. And it's while there's always room for growth, we're addressing equity issues in those distribution. And staff is providing more training to Human Services Commission, and we're providing webinars, online resources, and open office hours. And there's a real commitment to make sure that we're not just following this cookbook approach to grant funding, but we're taking a look at it more in a holistic way. And that's really where you'll see direct assistance to organizations that are out in the community and helping people in a real life basis. And so that's I would say that's a big deal. Let's see. And, we've taken a look at, I've been taking a look at the policies that we have here in regard to, how we, our anti-discrimination policies in preparation for this meeting. And I think just in regard to having conversations about this and the policies we have at the police department. And I think it is important to note that, in light of what happened to George Floyd, the city of Federal Way did discontinue and ban any use of any kind of chokeholds or neck holds. So that's pretty much I think we've still got a lot of work to do on the budget, and my statutory obligation, my legal obligation, is to provide that first step to the council of, providing a proposed budget. Now we're going to roll up our sleeves and take out our pencils and erasers and really listen to the council about, and see, where they would like to make some changes. So that's pretty much my report on at this stage.
Okay, at this point, we have Q&A, and we have a substantial amount of time because the mayor didn't take up his full time. So there's an opportunity for Q&A. Raise your hand, and I'll be looking for you to raise your hand under participants. Because I cannot see you now, I'm going to request that you raise your hand. If you can't, put it in the chat. Otherwise, I won't know to be able to call you because I cannot see all of your wonderful faces. And then please confine your comments only to those items brought up by the mayor or items you feel should be included in the budget for the BIPOC community and perhaps has not been included. Before we do that, Mayor, can you briefly tell us what other opportunities that our community has to have input and comment on the budget besides this forum here?
Oh yeah, there are budget meetings coming up. I have to tell you, and it's really important to everybody, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it before, Cynthia and everybody, we have something going on, which is a big deal tomorrow, and that is the process for the selection of the 7th council member, the position number 5, because of the empty seat due to the resignation of a council member, Mark Kopang. And I would encourage, it takes 4 votes to approve a budget at least, and the council is going to be listening and deliberating regarding an addition to the city council. That happens tomorrow. Susan, what time is that? Like 5:30? 5:30.
It starts at 5:30. Yeah,
thank you. Bill beat you to it. I wanted to make sure I had the right time, but I would encourage people to be part of that. And then we've got on our, and let me see if I can open up my calendar. I got it right here. With regard to budget meetings, we've got, obviously tomorrow is the council position interview. And then next week we have budget meetings. We'll have one before a study session at 5 o'clock next Tuesday before the regular city council meeting. And then the next day on the let's see here, on the 21st, which is actually why we had to have this meeting tonight, is because we've got that city council budget study session. And so thank you everybody for helping us. We talked to Lynn. As soon as I found out we had a study session, I'm like, oh God, we gotta figure out when we're gonna do the our quarterly meeting. So I would say it's really important that we hear from you in public comment. That really helps us. And because of the manner in which we're having to do these meetings via Zoom, we haven't had as many comments. And I know when I talked to Susan, our council president, and the council members, we are concerned that we have not, we have not been hearing as much from people during these Zoom meetings. So we really need to hear from you.
Mayor?
Oh yeah, can I actually go ahead, Susan?
Could you talk about the community cleanup on Saturday, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you. And this is something, God, there was something else I was going to say before that. Before I talk about that, Susan, I wanted to let everybody know that for the meetings that you've missed so far, you can go either on our website or you can go on YouTube and look up each one of these meetings. So the beautiful thing about it is if you want to see the police department budget presentation, you don't have to watch all 10 hours now. You can just zoom through, speed through those presentations. And as soon as you see that PowerPoint, you can just start watching. And if anybody wants our PowerPoints from those, we can make sure you get them. So send me or council members an email. And as Susan was talking about, thank you for the collaboration between Susan Honda, the council. We have a litter cleanup event this Saturday. We're going to meet in the PAC parking lot between 9 and 10, and then between noon and 12, between 10 and noon, we're going to be out picking up litter. Ben doesn't know he's going yet, but he's going to be out there with my little 13-year-old. So we're going to be out there. Tyler said he's bringing his kids, so I'm bringing Ben. And we're going to be out there making sure we, are socially distanced and have our vests and stuff picked up. But it's going to be very important. And that's a big passion of Susan and the council to make sure we've got a clean community. And we've really seen a real uptick in garbage around town. And we just need to make sure that we're taking care of that.
Thank you. All right, so I see things popping up at the chat. So one of the questions from Miss Terza, thank you so much, good to see you, ma'am, is can we have more information on the Federal Way time capsule, please?
You bet. You know what, Terza, I was going to talk about that, but it's kind of my pet project, so I didn't want to take time here, but so thank you for asking me. You push the button now. Okay, we are working really hard. If anybody has any suggestions for what's going to go into our 30-year time capsule, let us know. We're actually going to seal this up on the Friday after the election, on November 6th. We're working with the school district, the historical society. We've got kids involved and people from the council. We've got people from all around the community that are in the process of providing lots of pictures, newspapers, and we're going to put in the Juneteenth flag. We had heard that people wanted to, and that makes perfect sense. It was historic that we did that and had that. In fact, I've got a great picture in my office here of that celebration in which we raised the Juneteenth flag, and that's going to go in the time capsule, along with the pride flag. Was the first and historic time that we raised that as well. And so that's going to be, the ceremony for that is going to be on Friday, November 6th. It's the Friday of the general election. We're going to be at the PAC where we're going to have a plaque that we're dedicating, and I don't know if you guys saw the news story, but this the vault that we're putting in is about there were comments online. It's like, Mr. Mayor, that looks big enough for you to get in. It's about 5 feet long and kind of deep, and and no pushing when I get close to it. But we're gonna fill it up with all kinds of great pictures, and Tyler's becoming an expert on how you preserve pictures. And we were talking to somebody the other day. I got to tell you this, you guys. Somebody was suggesting that, I think it was Michael Park, wanted to bring by a one of those clips. What do you call those? I'm like, Yeah, thumb drive. Oh my God, I'm such a boomer. So somebody said they wanted to bring by a thumb drive, and I laughed and I said, in 30 years from now, no one is going to be able to operate a thumb drive. It'd be like an 8-track cassette now, or when 30 years ago when I was, just starting to work in the legislature, not one person had a computer on their desk. So we have to think about making sure that whatever we put in there is going to be easily accessible. And so we're sealing things up and with pictures, and we want to have a picture of the school board and picture of the council and pictures of our buildings now, and we'll have pictures of this meeting, and just stuff that we want to seal up for 30 years, because this is our 30-year anniversary, and on the 60-year anniversary, people are going to be thinking about looking back, but they're also going to be thinking about the 90-year anniversary and their own time capsule. So thank you, Teresa, for bringing that up.
So, okay, so we have a lot of comments. I'm going to try to read them off. Teresa says she plans on being around here to witness it being open.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Exactly.
Tyler, thank you. We will have various items that will be put into the capsule on display during the ceremony at the Performing Arts Entertainment Center. Catherine Fiesta, thank you. Black Lives Matter button, please include one of those.
Yep.
In the capsule. And of course, facial coverings.
Yep. Oh yeah, all kinds. N95, and we'll have some designer. You guys, the other day, I saw somebody whose it was a plaid mask that literally matched the design of their plaid shirt. And that's where things are going these days. So we'll have some designer masks, some surgical masks, some procedure masks, N95. We'll have a whole selection of masks and headlines.
Thank you. So this is from Trudy Davis. I believe she's one of our school board members. Mm-hmm. Mayor, unfortunately, I missed a little bit of what you were saying about our homeless population. I've lived in Federal Way for over 20 years, and what I'm seeing over the past 2 or 3 years is concerning. I have spoken to quite a few of these people out there on the street, and have even housed several in my home, a homeless child. Anderson is for families, but what about single homeless people? And does the Anderson shelter serve as a day center and cold weather center as well? Thank you, Trudy, for that comment.
Thank you, Trudy. Right now, we've got issues because of COVID-19, congregate shelter. Right now, what I'm really focusing on is, and it's a really great question. I've been talking with the council president. I've been talking with our human services manager. I am very concerned about making sure that we have a location when the temperature drops and it's literally dangerous for people to be outside. So we are working right now to because we can't do the congregate shelter model that we've had in place before. So and we're also, there are a lot of efforts going on regionally with regard to shelter locations and there's a whole system being put together, as you likely know, at the county level with the King County Homelessness Authority and representatives being selected, as well as the sales tax that the county just passed. We had a big discussion on that at our last meeting. Some cities have actually bypassed the county in that process, and the city of Federal Way opted not to because the county probably has, obviously with being able to work to scale, they will have more resources to be able to plan that. But we're doing everything we can to make sure that when the temperature drops, we've got a location. We've got a couple of backup plans. That is something I'm working on right now. So it's in the works. But we do support the day center. That's a critical piece, and that's something that that we have been integrally involved in, and making sure that we support our partners that have shelters. And the real thing right now in regard to that cold weather shelter is, do we have a faith location that's going to provide that, or do we need to find a city facility? And that's the process.
I'm moderating, so I will try really hard not to comment. I want to so bad. Thank you. Tyler,
that's like me at the city council meetings, Cynthia.
I will.
But as Susan knows, I don't succeed very well.
And Tyler said to make an appointment to drop any items off at City Hall, please email pamela.jones@cityoffederalway.com. Let me remind everyone that the City of Federal Way building is closed, but you can call the various departments for people that you need to see to have a discussion, and if warranted, I think they will let you in. So keep that in mind. Question from the Black community: what specific measures were added to the budget to address our community needs? Speaking specifically of those of the African American diaspora. On a personal note, I know we are looking forward to having DEI, which is, for those who don't know, diversity, equity, and inclusion training during the next council retreat. But in addition, what measures, in light of the community response in Washington, what measures have been taken to ensure we are ready this session with our budget request to ensure our new projects have an equity lens?
A new project? What's you mean?
What measures have been taken to ensure we are ready this upcoming session with our budget request to ensure our new projects have an equity lens?
Oh, are you talking about for the state legislative budget? I think we have not drafted. We've been very busy with our current city budget, and we just have not been working on our state legislative requests. But I think that's something that we'll, obviously we're going to be, pivoting on here real fast and working on it. Now we'll talk to the council but that's always we're always looking for ways to make sure that we're doing everything in an inclusive manner, and that we have a non-discriminatory city, I think that's something that, and I see a comment about funding for body cameras. That could be, I'll talk to the council about that, and it could be, something that we look at.
Okay. Jerry Lynn, thank you so much. Jerry Lynn, in case you don't know, she's a staff to the city council. Amazing, wonderful person. She just put in the chat where you can find the budget documents. I've reviewed them twice in their entirety. I would encourage all of you to do the same at least once. You don't have to be as crazy as me and, white out and write on the margins.
Cynthia, I would also, can I just interject real quick? If anybody has any suggestions or input on our legislative budget for the legislative session coming up, we'd love to hear it. And this would be the perfect time to hear those suggestions, because then, we're in the process of forming that. We're not ready to, go with any of that yet. And, but we will, and soon.
When does that usually commence, that process?
Well, we'll bring it before the council. I would say in the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about that. And we would probably bring it before the council for authorization, perhaps the first meeting in December, which would be the last meeting of the year. That's likely when that's the most likely time in which that will come up. So we are going to have probably at least 2 Federal Way Black Collective meetings, I'm guessing, Lynn. So that would be one of those community meetings that definitely devote some time to discussing what legislative priorities, recommendations.
Definitely. So there will be one actually later this month in October. It's the 4th Tuesday, so I believe it's October 27th. And then the same in November, so we can build those priorities out to be ready to submit back to the mayor during council meetings, as well as being ready for our next public meeting like this in January.
Thank you. Wonderful. Ms. Carlicia asked, can you speak to if anything in the budget was proposed geared towards funding for youth services, specifically Black and Brown youth? Excellent question. Thank you, Sister Carlicia. Well, we take funding requests through this. That's why I spent a great deal of time talking about the renewed process that we have with our human services funding, and that's really where we get providers that ask community providers that are in the community that are providing services
that go through a competitive process, as you know, Cynthia. And so that's the key thing, is that there's a lot of money that goes through there, general fund money, pass-through money with CDBG, and we wanted to make sure that the Human Services Commissioners, take a look at exactly those kinds of things. So instead of, it's not a matter of, one of the things that we have been very careful and appropriate about is making sure that groups that are asking for funding for services directly to the underrepresented, the underserved in our community, go through that process and have the Human Services Commissioners evaluate that. And so that's the process we were talking about when I first started. And that's where direct service delivery occurs to the BIPOC community. And where one of the things when I first did the first budget here at the City of Federal Way, 6 years ago now, one of the things I wanted to take a look at is general fund money coming out of human services. And there's a lot of money in our community, in our human services budget from the human services that goes through general fund that are for healthcare, food bank, all kinds of assistance in the tens of thousands to communities in need and underrepresented communities, that whether it's dental care for kids or, healthcare, emergency shelter, emergency food services. So those kinds of things are ongoing, but then it's the additional request for, funding to, work with kids, out in the community, that is going through that process right now.
So I'm trying really hard not to comment because I'm supposed to be moderating, but I'm also in the community resident, and I sit on the Human Services Commission. So there is a Human Services Commission meeting this coming Monday. I believe it's at, I want to say 5:30. I believe it is 5:30. I should know this, but it's on my calendar. And we will be looking at those proposed funding recommendations. So, and we have reviewed those applications. So I encourage all of you, it is a public meeting, to join in and see the process, hear how we reached our conclusions, and you'll see what recommendations we're making to the City Council for funding. So thank you.
Yeah, that's where a lot of the heavy lifting. I think the Human Services Commission is really one of the most important commissions, and they do so much work. So thank you for your work on that and all the commissioners, and really, and there are so many great applications, and it's a lot of work when people sign up for that.
Thank you very much. But I also want to just do full disclosure, right? So the commission and the staff, city staff, are amazing working with us commissioners, and really the training that we went through was really great. I mean, I've been doing grants management for over 30 years, so I'm pretty familiar. But it was awesome the way they did that, because the commissioners vary in terms of really being able to understand things from an equity lens and what that looks like, and understanding everybody's got implicit bias somewhere. And so being able to do that. But we really,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mayor.
No, go ahead.
We do have recommendations about the process, and there's always room for improvement. So we did put that out there. COVID-19 has been interesting, to say the least, in our deliberations this year. It's having to do it virtually and dealing with that. Usually we could have a face-to-face discussion and really get into the heart of things, and people's emotions and passions really carry through. And that wasn't really possible via Zoom, but I think we did a pretty good job. So we'll see. What were you going to say, Mayor?
Oh my God, I had a thought. I'll think of it in a minute.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay, Brother Lewis asked an excellent question. Will City Council approve funding from either CARES Act or a Human Services budget specifically for BIPOC-led community-based organizations to support the marginalized community who are in need of services due to COVID-19.
Yes, they have to be involved. Once the commission comes through with their recommendations, then it goes to the next level to the council for their ratification. So the council does there, and therefore, as a result of that, and that's where what I want to say is that's a really critical. This whole process is really an amazing opportunity for not just the citizen members of the commission, but also the community to have once they see those. And there have been times in which, and this is always very kind of controversial, in which the council maybe disagree a little bit on this allocation or that allocation, and there's always sort of that natural tension of why do you have a commission if you're going to potentially overrule them, but ultimately the final say is the council's. And so that is sort of a philosophical approach in regard to that. But we take the council will take the recommendations of the commission, and then it will be on them to make those, approve those.
So I just want to make sure that Lewis's question was addressed as he asked it. He said specifically for the BIPOC-led CBOs. So are you saying that prioritization comes from the city council?
No, the prioritization, and now I remember what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought earlier. I think that we really felt here at the city that this, and over time, formulas, sort of lose their relevance, and the formula that we were using for these important grants just wasn't speaking to cultural relevance, and through that equity lens, and that's why we took a look at it. And that's certainly the recommendation, hopefully coming out of the Human Services Commission, will be focused on that through that equity lens. But I do want to provide my partner, Susan Honda, as the council president, to sort of weigh in on this, if that's okay.
Yes.
Susan?
Yes, on the commission, the recommendations from the commission.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I was on the city council, I was on the diversity commission and the arts commission, and the arts commission every year makes recommendations to the city council for art groups to have some funding. And I can remember several times when the city council did not agree with the arts commission and changed our recommendations. It's always upsetting to the commission, but it is the city council does have the ability to do that, because they see the bigger picture than what the commission might see of the needs in the city. So it's not done very often, and we don't like to do that. We know that it causes hard feelings and causes some commission members to be really upset. And as a commission member who went through the process several times, I know what it feels like when our recommendations were not taken by the city council. So we try very hard to follow the recommendations of the commission. And it's the Human Services Commission is a really tough commission. They do a lot of work, and they help us out a lot. They're reading all those applications, and they're discussing them. And without them doing that, we would be doing that. So we appreciate what they do.
So I do want to say, because I've been doing this for a while when I was staff and then now as a commissioner, that the staff did, I think, an excellent job of trying to reach the BIPOC community to make sure that the community had access and knew how to apply, and then to provide and make themselves available to help out in doing the application process. And I think that the staff is looking for more resources to be able to provide technical assistance in the future, so that those communities that really have a cultural competency lens and provide culturally relevant services and have a specialized niche, that they can have access and are able to have the resources needed to apply, just like our larger, more mainstream organizations, right? And so I do appreciate, I know that that's something that staff is working on, and I think in the budget, there should be resources to make sure that that happens, because that's really, really important. There's a cultural barrier, there's a language barrier. We already know about the technological gap, right? We're seeing that in the school district right now with distance learning. And the same thing happens with those organizations that are out there serving the special niche. They don't have that technology piece either. And then go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead, Cynthia, I cut you off.
So I'm just saying that those things are very important in terms of breaking down the access barrier to being able to submit quality applications, right? And that staff have the ability to provide the training if they had enough resources to do it, right? Because you might need interpreters, you might need to translate documents in different languages. Go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to say that, I think honing in on this is a very important thing to make sure, because a lot of the services of, direct benefit to the BIPOC community occurs in this space. And I would also say that, oftentimes when people just get up and running in their organization, they're not aware of how to get in it. In fact, I recall when the day center first got up and running, and then we had a huge group when we could still meet. This is now a few years ago now. When Sound Alliance first came up with the idea, they packed the conference room next to me, and I just said, "Where are you at with your human services request?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And it took them a budget cycle to get in, and that's why we had to provide some, I think 50,000 one year, 50,000 the other year, but then we just finally got them sort of in that process, which is really where they needed to be. And now they, obviously the day center is a critical piece of the infrastructure to help people in our community. And that's I think a key piece of making sure that people can get to these to this program. And I think actually during the last stages of the budget last year, we had another request. Gosh, what was the name of that group? That was a last minute addition to the budget that we shaved some money off. That was, the Youth Action Team. Yes, that bypassed that process. And sometimes you've got great ideas, a lot of passion, and the council felt it was imperative to get them in, but that did in the short term bypass that process. But now, I've talked to Susan a lot, and Sarah, our human services manager, about making sure that because they had some issues about getting that money spent, and we wanted to make sure that we put that forward back again for the Youth Action Team, because that is the kind of thing that we're talking about in regard to direct funding to the BIPOC community and to the underserved populations.
Thank you. Sister Terza said, funding for body cameras, more ways to communicate through the African language barriers so that you can feel more included. So funding for body cameras, and more ways to communicate, probably training, I'm guessing, that so that those with African languages can feel more connected. I don't know if you noticed, but one of the fastest growing populations in Federal Way are those from African countries, and the fastest growing. So we've got to be more inclusive, open it up so that we're welcoming and providing services and reaching out to communities that are moving here. Sister Lakeisha, another one of our school board members, digital equity has been a large conversation that we have been having here at the school district and as a state. We know that Federal Way has digital dead spots. How can we help our most marginalized families? What kind of conversation are you having at the city level? And how do you plan to advocate at the legislative level?
Well, thank you, Lakeisha. As you're probably well aware, we've been having conversations and meetings with Superintendent Dr. Tammy Campbell about making sure that that individuals and the students in the Federal Way School District that did not have access to internet, that we're working on that right now in regard to dead spots. That's something that we've convened a working group of myself, Thomas, our IT director, and his folks, and Bill, and then also Dr. Campbell's team, that we've had several meetings so far, and we're working on making sure that some of this stuff doesn't necessarily need legislative assistance. We're working on right now and we kind of overlaid two maps, excuse me, about where do we have most of our students and where do we have the needs. And we are, excuse me, and we are working right now to, for greater connectivity and to help out with that. So that's a real great collaboration between the school district and the city. And then I'll talk to Thomas, and as we look to see, do we need to go to the state legislative level for, these spots? But right now we're moving forward at our own cost, and in coordination with the school district to provide that connectivity. And, we do that a lot, actually. It's really oftentimes it's about line of sight, to make sure that you get, I'm going to pretend like I know anything about technology, you guys, so bear with me. But, to make sure that these things can connect, where there's line of sight, you get it high enough. And we've got certain cameras that obviously have to have that connectivity. And same thing with Wi-Fi. We need to be able to connect up and have the right hardware in place, so people can access the internet. And especially, I've got a 13-year-old that logs on every day at 8 a.m. Well, he gets one day off during the week, but every day at 8 a.m. he is logging on, and it's asynchronous learning on one of those days. Boy, they're doing a great job. And Lakeisha, I am just so proud of our school district and everything that they're doing. There has not been one glitch so far. But what I think, actually, because of our proximity to Seattle and the tech giants in our region, I think there's an assumption, perhaps along with the public, that we're doing okay with regard to infrastructure, and that infrastructure needs assistance. So as we look for our legislative agenda for the state legislature, that may be something that we take a look at to see if we've got infrastructure issues. But right now, we're trying to capture that low-hanging fruit to be able to connect up apartment complexes or high locations of students that are having connectivity issues. That's ongoing.
I can just add a little bit more. I was a little more curious. So I'm definitely hearing about students. And thanks to Representative Johnson, pretty earlier on, I was able to sit in a meeting with King County and look at the digital equity map that they had kind of created. It actually showed quite a bit of Federal Way not having access to broadband internet, and showing various spots, close to 35, maybe 40%. It was a good amount. So I was curious on the city level, because I definitely hear about students, and I can't commend, the district and their work. I'm the same. We're at home with all of the kids online.
Right.
But I was more interested in how that's impacting people and parents who are having to work, or those who are homeless, don't have access to Wi-Fi. I know with our libraries and stuff closed. So I was just curious if there's anything else going on more the adult side, that you've maybe heard of the city that I just wasn't aware of. And then, how can we continue to advocate? Because I know I'm sure the legislator has to be hearing about infrastructure issues. And I don't know. I know Federal Way in our area is pretty big. We've got some rural areas, right? We've got septic tank areas. So I'm not sure if broadband is getting into those areas. So I was just hoping to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, right around the Decatur area, just because of topography, we've actually, if you just in your mind's eye can think about that area as 320th sort of drops down a bit, we had serious issues with radio coverage on the west portion of our city, and I'm sure the city, and that's the same kind of thing in which for connectivity on the west side, we've had some pockets of issues, but I haven't heard a number as big as 35%. We'll add this as a legislative item to take a look at and investigate, and talk to Thomas, our IT director, about ways we could improve this. So that's really what started the the talks with the school district about doing what we can in the immediate short term. And then if it looks like we need some infrastructure, then we'll seek those monies out. Thanks.
Thank you, Sister Lakeisha. Before I go to the next question, I just want to go back to something you mentioned, Mayor, when one of the earlier questions was regarding the BIPOC community and ensuring that there were resources in the budget and in human services and with the CARES Act prioritized for the BIPOC community. And you mentioned that the starting point was at human services. And I just want to make sure we're all very clear that the needs in the BIPOC community are not just with human services, right? We've got structural racism, it's huge. We've got the healthcare issue, disparities there. If you look at the percentage of homeowners here in the BIPOC community, it is much lower than others. There are tons of things. And so I just want to make sure that it's clear that there are more issues besides funding and access. I'm not saying they're not important issues. They're very important issues, but there are tons of issues, other ones. And one that Sister Lakeisha just brought up, the digital divide, access, right? So I don't live too far from Decatur. And I know we're right on that dividing line between good internet access and then getting dropped. So if you're on one side of my house, you have great access. If you go to the other side, you will drop your cell phone, you won't have internet access, and you don't get cable.
Wow. Wow. And especially in this day and age, if you don't have video access, internet access, that's how we're connecting in the world these days. So that is a priority for the city. So that's, I want to hear, those kinds of things, and we will definitely, I'll talk to Thomas and make sure that we address that, step up our efforts even more with the school district and address this in our legislative agenda. But there's all kinds of things that, that we're, the budget is, there's a lot there. And, obviously you've got different component parts. You've got, parks, roads, you've got the police portion, you've got the parks, the road construction. I can tell you that, one of the things that's been a challenge is, we have been severely understaffed in many of our departments since we shed over 70 employees, quite a number of years ago. And it's really taken us to try to get to a point where, whether it's in community development or in parks, parks is really, they're fighting this battle with one hand tied behind their back. And so it is really, it's like trying to hold 100 balloons down at the same time. As soon as you put your hand over in one location, you realize you've got, and then one of the real vulnerabilities is IT. And I know the council is very concerned about IT and the infrastructure. We were just talking about that right now. What we're doing right now and what I do every day and what everybody at the city does the first thing in the morning is they turn on their computer. Well, there are a lot of issues with regard to IT security, with regard to, making sure that we're doing everything we can where we don't click the wrong button or be subject to ransomware. And ransomware is really serious. It's affected some huge cities in this country. So all kinds of things going on. But I can tell you that there's never been a greater focus on, BIPOC equity and inclusion in this city's history. It's something we're working toward. So I see Lakeisha with her hand up.
Can I just chime in really quickly? It is actually our oldest 17th birthday today. So I have to go and get my feeding in before he goes to bed. But I would love to hear more about the light rail. And I definitely want to hear about just housing and kind of what's going on. I know that's a big concern. So I will chime back in with everybody. But it was really great to see so many people's faces. And I will make sure to check in with you guys next time.
Thanks, Lakeisha.
We said happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right. Terza asked, okay, so there's 3 more questions in the chat that we're going to address. And then I'm just going to time check, 8:08. The meeting is supposed to go till 9. And I know that's pretty late for everyone. So I want to make sure that we have time. So by 8:30, I want to cut off and transition. Does that sound okay, Lynn? To looking at what the Federal Way Black Collective ask is for the city, specifically those budget items. Okay, so we'll do that at 8:30. So we'll continue this discussion until then, and then at 8:30 we'll have a stop. Okay. So Terza asked, how do we make sure that those issues will not be last minute again for our community, and because of the language barrier, they do not participate? Terza, you might have to unmute to elaborate on that question.
Hi, I got grandma duties. That's why I keep flicking y'all. You know, I'm not looking at y'all. I got grandma duties tonight. But my issue is, and hello everybody. My issue is, as the mayor stated, last year during the budget session, it was extremely difficult to get that $50,000 for the youth. And again, when we're looking at being one of the most diverse people in this area, you don't see a lot of people of color participating because of the language barrier. We have Hispanics, you can speak Spanish everywhere. There's several other languages, but like you said, we have a lot of Somalians, we have a lot of people from Kenya, we have a lot of people from other places that English is not their first language. So they don't participate. They don't participate in the school issues where their children are involved. They don't participate. They live in the city, they pay taxes. We don't have any restaurants that speak to them, to speak to their culture. So they're missing out on a lot, even though they're full tax-paying community members in federal way. So I want to know how we can avoid that. Again, I'm sorry. How we can avoid those issues and make them feel included, especially when they're so serious and we don't want to be last minute again to something that's so important to us. So that's what I'm saying. So, and I know when I go to conferences that there's all these people in the back from different countries with different languages. And so when you go to a community meeting or to a big conference, all these different languages are in the back room and people have on headphones. Some churches you go to, they have headphones where you can hear your language. The person is speaking in English or Spanish or whatever the language is, and the person with the headphones on can hear it spoken in a language that they can understand. So can we put some of that in our budget, considering that federal way is the 5th, either in the state or in the nation, for diversity? I really think we need to do better on being, not just say inclusive, but let's be inclusive.
Hear, hear. Absolutely.
And again, we need real insight, steps to take to make sure we're not sitting at the table at the budget next session. So we're not sitting at the budget session again, asking, where's the money for the body cams? Why don't we have the police accountability board yet? We don't want to be sitting there at the end saying, well, we got to wait till next year. Because like, people are already tired. We're active, we're engaged. We don't see any reason why this stuff cannot be taken care of this year in this budget session. So that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tirza. I would say, the request that came last year is very much like what happened with the day center, in that sometimes people, by the time they figure out that this is going on, instead of having the rigid no, there have been times in which, those are two examples right there, the day center and, last year's, or the last time the budget we did, where they had missed, that process, but it had a lot of community support. And then the council decided to, include that in there. And I think having that flexibility and not the rigidness of, sorry, you missed a deadline. I think that one of the things I always try to do is, my brother Phil was a firefighter for over 30 years, and he referred to me as a malicious obedience to a code, or to, that sometimes you could be so slave to a process, or tied to a process, that you overlook, or institutionally or systemically, not address something that is, on the surface would help a lot of people. So I think having that flexibility is critical, and institutionally, and basically saying, okay, you missed this process, but we also need to be fair. It's a balancing act, because you do need to be fair to the people that have gone through the process and have submitted their materials and gone through that vetting process. And so it really is a balancing act. So that's what we try to engage in. But thank you, Tirza. I think you're absolutely right that we need to make sure that we do as best we can. But sometimes when people walk in the door and say, I got a great idea, we're like, well, we just actually awarded those. So what are we going to do now? So it really is about just trying to do the best you can under the circumstances and operating with compassion.
Thank you. So question from the Federal Way Black Collective. How do organizations that need that level of technical assistance connect with city staff?
Could you say that again?
How do organizations that need that level of technical assistance connect with city staff? I think this is going back to that conversation we were having about BIPOC-led organizations who may have maybe a cultural barrier or.
Well, I think, the council has we've got, great reach in the community with the council. We can connect with staff, with Sarah Bridgeford, our human services manager. I think it's about just, getting on our radar screen and then getting, Sarah does a great job in regard to, providing resources and information to people. So I think that's the most important thing is it just has to come up on our radar screen, whether it's through my office, through the council, through staff. The staff that eventually will handle this will be Sarah Bridgeford.
I can't help it, folks. I'm sorry. I know this will probably be the last time I'm allowed to facilitate, but there are also organizations out there who do technical assistance and training already in their community. And I think partnering with them, right, is a great way to do that as well. So I'm looking, I know Lewis is on here. There's some others, but anyway, I'm just saying, I don't want this to be a personal recommendation kind of thing, but there are communities that do capacity building, BIPOC-led organizations that do capacity building. And so I would encourage the city to consider that. Sister Trudy, you had a comment in here and you felt that there were some things missing. So why don't you unmute and go ahead and share your thoughts? And Eric, I see you. I'll make sure I call on you. Go ahead, Miss Trudy.
You would put me on the spot. No, it's just, this is my first time attending, because of course it's only been 2. And I can't be everywhere all the time, so I'm probably missing out on a lot of conversations that are being had. So I'm not going to blame anyone for not talking about something, so I'm not going to do that. I guess when I heard and got the word of this conversation, I think I just expected some different topics, I guess, and different topics to be brought up. I think because I am such the plain Jane, I kind of stay at this one level of, community. I'm concerned about my neighbors, the ones down the street. I'm concerned about my seniors across the street. I'm concerned about all the children in the neighborhood. I'm the Kool-Aid house. I'm concerned about everybody. And so I stay in that whole community vibe. And a lot of the people that I talk to and see every day and just speak to anonymously about how they're feeling about where they live are not people who are going to be getting some of this money. We're talking about budgets and stuff like that. They may benefit from it if it happens, but they're not the ones that are getting that. They're just talking about their day-to-day life. And so, and being a mom also, I just kind of, I stay in that mode. Unfortunately, I kind of have left corporate America and I'm at the homestead sort of thing right now. So when I hear conversations, I feel like things are missing from the ground up, the whole boots on the ground, so to speak. It's like, when I was in the military where, we had people speaking for us, but they weren't asking us in the ranks, what to do. We could say it to our sergeant, but we don't know if that was going to go up. So these are the people that I feel for, and these are the people that I talk to all the time. And these are the people that I see on the street. I don't see, when I mention our homeless population, I don't see the same faces that I see when I go to Seattle. Those faces look different. They look as if that's where I want to be. Leave me alone. I'm doing drugs. I see people here that have lost everything. They're down to their last. And I see they're still clean, they still have a car, but this is it. They're on their last leg. And so I worry about that. And just, being a community member, I've always felt like Federway is like the greatest place. As soon as they put a stoplight at 356 and in Chataway, I was like, whoa, hey, this is a rural area, So I love the safe bubble I thought that I was in. But now I'm going into Walmart and I'm seeing things locked up, just basic needs that people need are locked up. And I didn't think our crime rate was going up here. So I get a lot of confusion going on and a lot of missed messages. So I wonder, because a lot of people aren't, they don't come to or attend or listen into city council meeting, if they know how to be heard and where do they go to. And so we have all of these multi-unit complexes, and I sometimes I feel like maybe we need to have a welcoming station in these places to let people know you're part of this community, and this is what we have here. A lot of people are being forced from other places, and believe it or not, it's almost like a culture shock coming from the city, knowing that you can walk down the street to whatever was convenient before, and it's not anymore. And now everything is kind of spread out here. But I just think if we start connecting with people, I know it sounds, kind of, I'm not sure what to call it, but I just think if people knew that you belong here, this is what we have available here in this city for you, who you can reach out to, where DHS is, where the parks are that are free to go to, where your kids can go play safely, where you can go to the library, wherever you can reach out, if they can just feel all of those welcoming things, and even the list of jobs or things that are available in our city. It's just those kind of things will make people feel like, I belong here. This is my city too. And they'll do things differently. Trudy. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. And they'll do things differently. They won't feel left out. They'll feel included. Feeling included means just being welcoming.
Yeah.
That's just me. Right. I'm old-fashioned Southern girl. So.
Well, actually, I agree, and I at one point I wanted to, have a sign. We were always talking about, how to brand Federal Way, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to put, something, in the interest of the city. It says "Welcome Home," and kind of a sense of, like whether you're first time here, you found the right place, or whether you're coming back home after a long day at work. I think that's the kind of mentality and the approach that we want. I do think there's got to be better, ways to welcome people in the community, and we'll look for them. And give us some ideas. And what we try to do a lot of community events, and where we bring people together. Obviously, it's hard to get people together now, but it's also important, and maybe some of these big apartment complexes, when they come in. To just do our best to reach out. I know that I've gone to some of these apartments, and it is important to make sure that people feel like they're welcome, and to make sure that the city is easily navigable, and we've got signs around town where where things are. For a lot of times we didn't even have signage on the Performing Arts and Event Center, and or just certain directional signs. But that's, it is about making people feel welcome and genuinely mean it. So thank you. It's a great comment. I think you're absolutely right. I do think that Federal Way is becoming more of a community, and there are people that have been here a long time, and there are people that, haven't been really part of, haven't really, got into, more of a culture, or more of a where they're in bigger groups. And so we want that. That's why, frankly, a group like this quarterly meeting is a great way for people to, meet city leaders, meet activists, meet people that are, just wanting to, that's why conversations like this are really important.
Thank you. Okay, so I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we so far only see one city council member, one proposed city council member candidate who's on the call. I just wanted to recognize that, and who's participating in this meeting. So, Eric, I know I said you were up next. I wrote it down. So, Eric, want to go ahead with your question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Farrell, for taking the time and for everyone being here. I guess my question has to do with just some of the equity inclusion lens that you say the city is now definitely trying to promote with regard to your current procurement processes, things that promote equity inclusion. Obviously, there are statutory regulations around certain things, around things or limitations around that. What's being done by the city, by folks in the city to say there are limitations statutorily, but how do we promote minority inclusion in some of our procurement processes, some of our contracts, things that make people proud to want to live here and be a part of the development, the physical development, bricks and mortar, from a bricks and mortar standpoint, for folks who want to be more involved in that area.
Well, and so is that separate apart from the human services, process you're talking about?
Right,
like when we go out
and,
separate apart from that.
Yeah, contract procurement aside from human services. Yeah.
I'll need to get more up to speed with EJ. I know that EJ, our public works director, I connected you with, and I know that you've spent a career doing this. I think that there are efforts and a focus on making sure that we support minority and women-owned businesses and do what we can. I think it is off the top of my head, I can't give you chapter and verse on exactly what the percentages are. I do know that when we did the Performing Arts and Event Center, we had to have by contract, there was even language in there, but making sure that they had apprentices and making sure that young people or people that were just coming up, through the ranks, that was a piece of that as well. And that's a big part of the of labor. And I do know that there's a real focus in the labor movement about equality and inclusion. And it's certainly something that we support. With regard to exact details, I'll have to get to EJ to get back to you. And you talked to him. Do you recall much of that conversation?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I think when it comes to the apprenticeship, they don't have to be pushed a lot in that regard. When I say they, I mean some of the trade organizations. But when it comes to race, there seems to be, in my experience, to be a lot more pushback when it comes to the support of BIPOC communities and wanting more participation in those opportunities specifically. And when there's been an advocacy by city government to try and do that, there's often pushback. I've found that it has to be intentional though, or oftentimes it will just be language in procurement that's not actually implemented on the ground level, where you see more Black and brown folks working as tradespeople and ultimately owners in these industries. It has to be intentional. It's not going to happen by accident. There have been things in the books for many years that say, hey, there has to be participation by women and by people of color in these contracts that are federally funded. I mean, to the point you made earlier, oftentimes the money flows from the federal government to state Department of Commerce. And then they'll even push back on it unless the cities are flowing down and saying, hey, this is federal money. There should be some level of minority women-owned participation. But there doesn't often seem to be that advocacy.
Yeah, Eric, I was really surprised that we had to appeal that, with the State Department of Commerce with the grant funding that we've been taking care of. But I just said we need to make sure we do this. And so I think actually, I think you've hit the nail on the head that there has to be intentionality and leadership, and that's something that I will make sure that moving forward. I talk to EJ and our parks people and our management team about intentionality about doing exactly that, inclusion of a BIPOC for procurement. And Bill, let's make sure.
I'll continue to work with your folks as well, EJ and others.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
All right.
Okay, folks, you heard it. The mayor just committed to making sure he would talk with his department heads. I'm just saying what you said.
Yep.
To make sure that there's intentionality and ensuring that BIPOC organizations are outreach to for our city's procurement processes. So, you know, that's on a lot of levels. That could be police training, that could be services for equipment, supplies, right? Construction work, brick and mortar kind of work, studies, right? That goes around, I mean, it's pretty huge. So, okay. Let's see. There was a couple of comments in here, just as an FYI, I think this was information. So the county has a 24/7 language line access available to the county staff and investments. If the city could access or have a discussion with Council Member, King County Council Member Von Rockbauer, resource to look at resource sharing so that our communities might have access to as well. So maybe the city could jump on the same procurement process to use the language link. There was a question, is there a comprehensive list of nonprofits with intent and contact info on the city's website?
Nonprofits. What? Tyler, are you in the call? We've got Tyler Hemstreet, our communications person.
Yeah, Mayor, there was something on there, and I think it hadn't been updated in a while, and I was in the midst of updating it, and there had been some feedback from providers, and so I think it's just a matter of re-examining that. It was outdated, and there had been some leadership changes, and some organizations had, things had changed. So that's something that I can definitely bring back and fortify as we move along. Sure.
Okay, great. Good suggestion. We'll take care of that. Thank you. Thanks, Tyler.
Okay, it is now 8:31. So I will address this last one. Mayor, the I-1000 monies, the $1 million spent shows inequities in each of the cities in Washington, and Federal Way was very poor. Sister Terza wanted to know, did you want another copy?
Sure, yes.
Okay. So I mentioned this at the last meeting, and I want to say it again. I learned something very important working with communities, and that is they always want to know, we always want to know, what data do you have to show the impact you've had in my community? So of the human services dollars, for example, what percentage are going to BIPOC-led organizations and in various areas? Of the training dollars that were provided, whether to any training dollars to the staff, right? Let's say your professional development budget is $500,000. Of that $500,000, how much was spent in procurement with BIPOC-led organizations, training organizations, right? So I think that going forward, that is something that we can work towards, is operationalizing and saying, here's what the picture looked like. Our budget is this, and this is where it was invested, where there was intentionality. Here's where it went in the communities that are concerned here. At this point, we are going to move on to looking at the Federal Way Black Collective City Ask. I want to thank all of you for putting in your questions, and I want to thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to address them, and for, again, creating this space for this to happen. Thank you, and having your city staff available. We truly appreciate it. And all the other council members who are here and other elected officials, thank you for being here in this space to hear our concerns. So thank you.
Thank you.
So our ask. Before I get to the specifics of the ask, I just want you to know that where they came from. So over the past year or so, Federal Way Black Collective has had community meetings, helping to prioritize what are our issues, what are our needs, what are our concerns. And then especially under COVID-19, right, we've had some issues have been elevated, right? And then with the death of the killing of George Floyd, right, and other acts that we've seen that have shown the disparate impact on the Black community, thanks to our great media that we have available to us now, so that we can all see it as a nation and as a country and as a world. More issues have come up, and so based upon the feedback we've heard from the community and those community meetings, we looked at those areas where there was agreement that were directly related to items that could be related to the Federal Way to the City of Federal Way budget, right? So we're not talking about our whole legislative agenda. We're talking specifically just those items that are related to the budget and specifically to the City of Federal Way. So our specific ask, I'm sorry, just a minute. Someone put something in chat. Let me just see. Oh, Trudy said, thank you so much, Mayor. Okay. Proclamation. We would like a proclamation, a statement declaring that racism is a public health crisis and that the city has no tolerance for Federal Way. 2, a proclamation and statement in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, specifically addressing peaceful protesting, the right to assembly, and affirmation of the struggles that Federal Way residents of the African diaspora are experiencing. We would like the mayor and city council statement declaring safety of all Federal Way voters who are casting their votes at the voter drop-off box adjacent to City Hall. We didn't address the drop-off box on the 320th library. That's also of concern about it not being safe. But I know a lot of people will probably be using the one at City Hall just because of where it's located. It's well lit and the police department's right there. With respect to the city budget items, we're requesting a full-time equivalent for a DIE, Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Manager position that is responsible for having some type of HR duties, human resources duties, to help recruit and maintain BIPOC and persons with disability staff, city staff, to assess potential barriers in city programming and policies, and develop strategies focusing on recruiting and maintaining a diverse workforce. They would also look at city programming, ensuring that city programs, policies, and resources are inclusive and equitable to all Federal Way residents, including businesses, that they would do community outreach. They would be the city liaison to the BIPOC community. Specifically, there's someone that we know at the city we can call to address BIPOC specific concerns and issues and to help strategize and ensure that the BIPOC community have access to the city. And then they would have some grant writing responsibilities, of course, to identify potential resources to ensure inclusive programming and services and resources to the BIPOC Federal Way residents and community. With respect to the Diversity Commission, move them over to the Community Development Department. Expand their role to include review of city and all departments, as applicable, their missions and core values, to recommend that they have diversity, inclusion, and equity language and an equity lens process, and that they work with the diversity and equity manager or whomever that position is to provide regularly data to the city regarding programming and funding to diverse communities. So again, operationalizing how much has gone where. And then an independent residence review committee. Establish an independent review committee comprised of Federal Way residents that is co-staffed by the diversity and inclusion and equity manager and the city's crime analysts and prevention specialists, to review the police department protocols, to recommend policies to ensure diverse, equitable, and inclusive processes, and to review at least quarterly the use of force data and establish trends and make recommendations based upon that data. And lastly, a statement of affirmation of commitment to housing for all Federal Way residents. During COVID-19, the city will be doing everything in its power to protect the tenants' rights of Federal Way residents. A commitment to ensuring diverse housing options in Federal Way, including shelters, transitional, supportive housing, rental, and housing for other special needs populations. And 3, reporting to the community at least biannually, that would be twice a year, on the permits submitted for various housing options, including excluding, of course, confidential address locations. So like a domestic violence shelter, for example, we wouldn't want you to disclose that. And the status of those projects and programs. Why is this here? Because the question becomes, in our land use permitting process, are we looking at that process through an equity lens? Comments made about dumping, concerns about too much low-income housing or workforce housing congregated in a certain way is making homeowners nervous. We've heard those comments, right? But we also know that a large percentage of our Borough Park community live in rental housing and need those options. So comments like that are discerning. So we would like a statement of affirmation that all housing, right, is valued here and needed. And I think it's very telling, Mayor, when you said that, you know, Fusion's project is the first family shelter we have in the city, right? We need more housing types and housing options for families here. I think the city should be commended for the 3 large tax credit projects that were approved here within the last 4 years that have created over 800 and something units. That's great, right? But there's other things that we can be doing. So those are the specific asks. And Mayor, did you have any questions or comments on those asks?
Sure, you bet. Oh, can you hear me okay? I'm fully in support of putting out a proclamation that for myself and the council to sign regarding that the city has a 0 tolerance for racism, and that we're an inclusive, welcoming city. We've done the welcoming city and inclusive city proclamations before, but I think it is important in conjunction with the with our quarterly, with this quarterly meeting and the dialogue that we're having, and especially in light of everything that's happened this year, that we have 0 tolerance for racism, and also a praise to as I started the meeting off talking about the peaceful protesting and the expression of everyone's First Amendment rights, and also really encouraging people to vote. I would say, on the with the election boxes, the drop-off boxes, I don't think anybody's. I have not heard as the mayor and I talk to the police chief all the time. There has not been the specter of any kind of concerns with safety at the ballot boxes, and I certainly don't want to bring up the specter of that. We're going to have it's going to be well lit. You're going to have the state patrol out there like they always do on election night, and I don't want to create an issue where there is none. I've not heard one person concerned with safety in regard to dropping off their ballots, and so, but we're gonna we can do a proclamation in regard to 0 tolerance and peaceful protesting and encouraging people to vote. So and I also, like I said, the state patrol is there mainly for traffic management, because we get a ton of people. With regard to the and let me just get I don't want to parse this out. I want to say, first of all, that I truly believe, and without reservation, that Black Lives Matter. Absolutely. That is, I want to be intentional about our language, and I'm not sure that that the Black Lives Matter is a movement. We do, I do support the movement and the causes for that. I don't think that we need to necessarily put out a proclamation or talking about that is an organization as well. And I think that my job as mayor, and I think that what we want to do is bring people together. And so like I said, I'll put out and I will support a proclamation for no tolerance, for racism and really the expression of free speech. But that's where I'm at right now. And I want to go back. I do believe that Black Lives Matter. And with regard to the position, we are in the process of a budget process. We're knee deep in it right now. And we have, as I've mentioned, we have severe shortages in our in our departments. Let me take that under consideration. I'll consider it. I will. Obviously, the council has a role in this process, and we'll take a look at other examples. But right now, we've got issues with regard to parks, public works, IT, finance, every department. And we've had to say no to some pretty important positions. I understand that we do have a lot of work that's been done with regard to making sure that we have an inclusive, diverse workforce and create an environment here in policies in which we do not allow or condone any sort of racism or discrimination. And those are written policies in the police department, in the city, in those kinds of issues. In regard to the independent review committee, it is the reason why we started off the very first meeting is because knowing that this has been an issue, I wanted to give the chief the opportunity to talk about what's been done, what is being done internally in the city. And I do know that there is some discussion about having this discussions at the state level. I think it is critically important to know that, to my understanding, out of all the law enforcement agencies, county, city, state, over 260 law enforcement agencies, to my knowledge, only 3 have a citizens oversight review board. And so there may be a legislative piece of this. I think what we want to do is, be present for those discussions at the state level. We don't want to. I think it's important that if there's something that passed at the state level, that's certainly something we'll look at and have those discussions. But I think. I think that's right now. We have an internal set of internal reviews with our police department, but we'll take a look at it. We'll see what happens at the state level. Tenants' rights. We actually passed protections for late fees to make sure that people, in conjunction with the governor's order, that late fees not be imposed on renters. And even where that was even suspected in one location, we reached out to the apartment complex and says, we're not doing that. So that's something in my emergency powers that that we directed, and the council ratified that. And then with regard to housing for people in this community, we are working through distribution, like I said, of $500,000 of CARES Act for individuals in our community. And so rent protection, just distribution of money and CARES Act money. So that's, but I do think it's critically important. I hear, I think these conversations are ongoing, and it's important that, I want to talk about the Diversity Commission here in a moment. That when I want to really, I will consider, in large part, all of these, recommendations moving forward. With regard to the Diversity Commission, I do want to say that the Diversity Commission is already actually in the Community Development Department. That is actually overseen by Brian Davis, our Community Development Director. And with regard to the overall role of the Diversity Commission, it's a council. They have a work plan. They've got the initiating, documents, and that's something that the council would need to take a look at with regard to whether they wanted the role of the Diversity Commission to expand in its You know, and I think that there are some operational aspects. The commission has a work plan. It's something that they voted on. The structure of the diversity commission is something the council voted on, and so it's certainly something to take a look at. And we'll talk to the council about all that. So, you know, I've worked my entire career to make sure that we bring government, that the government does the local government does as much as it can to represent everybody, and I want to make, and that's why meetings like this are important. I think it's good discussion, and certainly you've raised a number of issues that we probably will be discussing for quite some time. But that, I think, would be my initial comments on this.
Okay, thank you. It is now 8:49, and I think we had 2 more agenda items. And I know I'm getting hit up on my cell phone and in private chat, so I know people have a lot of comments. So this is just the beginning, because people obviously want to say something in response to your comments, but there isn't time right now. So just know we will continue this conversation. So this is the point in our agenda where we are opening up for persons who are of the non-African diaspora to ask questions. So you can either raise your hand, go to click on participants, and then you will see where you can raise your hand, or you can just put your, let me know in chat that you want to say something, and we will give you that time. I don't see any hands raised. I'm looking. And there is nothing in the chat. Okay. All right. Well, we will close that part of the agenda. So, Lynn, would you like to go ahead and talk about the Federal Way Black Collective Community Survey?
Yes. Sorry, guys. I'm screen sharing, so I don't know how to put my video back up. But I did hear, thank you, Trinity, for mentioning about that community impact and the desire to make input. So as we continue to have these meetings with the mayor and council, and this is a public meeting, one thing that the Federal Way Black Collective has been doing is having monthly community meetings so we can build up and draft this document. So this isn't something that like our organization does on our own. We've hosted several community meetings in the last year. And so the next one will be October 27th, so that we can develop and discuss what happened in this meeting. We'd love to get your feedback in this survey so we can try to help craft an agenda for that community meeting based on the priorities you guys want to discuss the most. So that is kind of all I had to say on that, Cynthia. Thank you so much for giving me a moment.
Oh, no. No. Thank you. Lynn, did you want to close us out?
Sure. So, all right. So I talked about the November meeting. The December meeting is, I believe, the 3rd Tuesday. Sorry, I don't have my calendar up. And don't forget to complete the survey that was previously on the screen. And check out for those updates on the website. So the Small Business Technical Assistance Program, there was a lot of effort that went into that. Like, it's very interesting how funding gets awarded on a commerce level. So this is something that would probably not be taken very much notice on our community, and not just the Black community, but like Mayor Farrell, I think you can even say this, like a focus on a nonprofit or otherwise of a business to be able to highlight these type of opportunities with no fee associated with it to get this type of funding is really unprecedented. And I'm really appreciative of how your office has been open to sharing the information so that we can get as many businesses back on the right path. Like I watched in the Federal Way group and I saw several businesses that posted like closing notices. Like, this is not something small. This is a larger funding opportunity. This is a really good opportunity. I know that we're a small organization, but this is not something where we're trying to come in and take over at all. We are largely an information sharing space. And I think that's what makes our partnership with the city so unique. I just want to publicly say, like, we do not get funding from the city of Federal Way, which is why I'm open to being a part of facilitating these meetings. Like, we don't have a stake in that game. We've been intentional about not applying for that funding. So the organizations that have been here, that have been, participating and looking for those opportunities, we can help facilitate that opportunity and not be a hindrance. So I do want to be very transparent about that, but definitely check out the website. Make sure that you're sharing any other resources you guys have with us. We do share anybody's services. So please let us know if you have an event coming up, if you have a service that you're providing for the community that we can share, so we can offer that to you. Thank you, guys. Mayor Farrell, do you want to close this out?
I do. Yeah, thank you very much. And this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for this space. And it was just really, it's very productive. The discussion will continue. And I think it's important that we come together as a community. And I really, what makes me feel really good is, well, there's so many, this has been such a divisive time in our country and in our area. I'm really proud of our community coming together and having good and honest conversations and about coming together. And I think the diversity of this community is its strength. And I think these quarterly meetings are going to be, really, I think this has been one of the highlights of the year so far, is really bringing people together, and really a real emphasis on those that have not been heard before and that have been underrepresented and not heard. And so it's my job. I take it upon my job to make sure I do everything I can that every voice is heard in our community. So thank you.
Thank you all. This concludes our meeting. It is now 8:56. So we gave you 4 minutes of your time. So thank you.
Great job, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Let's give Cynthia a big round. Thank you, Cynthia. Great job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank
Bye,
you
guys.
again, Mayor.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.